What do you think you're doing? Giving that filthy old thing to my daughter. The man's voice cracked like a whip across the hospital corridor, turning heads. Maya froze mid-step, her hands still outstretched toward the little girl in the bed, Emily, age 7, silent since the accident that took her mother. The comic book lay between them, its cover faded, corners curled from years of being read and reread. Maya turned, meeting the man's glare, tall, sharply dressed, face creased with fatigue and authority. He looked like the kind of man used to being obeyed without question. "It's just a comic book, sir," Maya said calmly, stepping slightly to shield Emily. "Just a comic book," he snapped. "It's covered in grime. For all I know, it's crawling with germs. My daughter's immune system is already compromised. That thing could make her worse." Emily flinched at the volume, shrinking back against the pillows. Maya's voice softened as she crouched to the child's level. "I cleaned it last night," she said, still watching the father. "It's not just any comic. It's Captain Liberty. He's brave, kind, and quiet like Emily." The man looked unconvinced, folding his arms across his chest. "You think a cheap, tattered book is what she needs right now? I think it's the first time she's reached for anything in days." That gave him pause. He glanced at Emily, just a flick of the eyes. But Maya saw something flicker there, doubt maybe, or fear, the kind a father feels when he's out of options. Maya continued, quieter now. "She hasn't spoken, hasn't even made eye contact. But when I offered her this, she touched it. She opened it." The man exhaled hard through his nose, staring at the worn comic like it had personally offended him. "I provide the best care, the best therapists. We fly in specialists. And you, what are you, a night shift nurse handing out charity from a backpack?" That one stung. Maya stood slowly, every muscle taut. "I'm someone who listens. Sometimes that's more than enough." Silence. Then Emily stirred, her small fingers moved, tugging at the comic. She opened it slowly, eyes following the illustration of Captain Liberty standing between a young girl and a towering villain. She placed a finger on the hero's chest, then lifted her gaze toward Maya. It was the first eye contact she'd made with anyone in over 3 weeks. Maya smiled gently. Emily didn't speak, but her look said everything. "I trust you." Nicholas Crane, CEO, billionaire, grieving father, watched this silent exchange. His mouth opened, then closed again. The tension in his jaw melted ever so slightly. He looked down at Emily, then back at Maya. "That was her mother's favorite character, too," he said quietly. Maya blinked, surprised. Nicholas took a step back, his shoulders sagged a bit, deflating under the weight of his anger. "Just make sure it's clean. That's all I ask." "I will," Maya replied. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, Emily tugged Maya's sleeve. She held up a crayon and scribbled a word on the corner of a coloring sheet, "Stay." Maya looked at the word, looked at Nicholas. He'd seen it, too. He didn't say anything more, but for the first time since his wife's funeral, he didn't look like a man standing alone on the edge of a cliff. That night, the comic book stayed with Emily, and so did Maya. By the following morning, the pediatric wing was quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that felt like something was about to shift. Maya arrived for her early shift, hair pulled back into a neat bun, fresh scrubs hugging her frame like armor. The hospital smelled like bleach and cold toast, and the overhead lights flickered faintly, as if still deciding whether to fully wake up. Maya made her way down the corridor, coffee cup in hand, and paused when she reached room 4C. The door was slightly ajar. A soft rustling came from inside. Emily was awake. More than that, she was coloring. It was the first time Maya had seen her actively do anything other than sit still, mute and blank-eyed. Now, the little girl sat cross-legged on the bed, a tray of crayons and paper in front of her, the old comic book beside her like a protective talisman. Maya knocked gently and stepped in. Emily looked up, eyes wide, but not startled. She picked up the drawing she'd been working on and held it out. The page was filled with a careful crayon recreation of Captain Liberty, and next to him, drawn a little clumsily, was a nurse in blue scrubs. Underneath, written in crooked colorful letters, Captain Liberty and Nurse Maya. Maya knelt beside the bed, heart catching in her throat. You drew this, she whispered. Emily nodded once. Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out a lanyard with a tiny plastic badge she used during children's parties at the hospital, an old, slightly faded Captain Liberty pin. I think this belongs to your team now, she said, pinning it gently on the corner of Emily's pillow. Emily smiled, a real one, small but unmistakable. That's when Nicholas Crane stepped in. The man was still in his suit from the night before, though his tie hung loosely, and there were dark shadows beneath his eyes. He stopped in the doorway, observing. His gaze softened as he took in the drawing, the pin, and the way Emily leaned ever so slightly toward Maya. You're here early, he said. Maya stood. I took the overnight shift. Figured she might need some continuity. Nicholas stepped further into the room. He glanced at the comic on the tray, then at the drawing. She hasn't drawn since her mother. She's doing more than drawing, Maya said gently. She's connecting. She's coming back. There was a pause. Nicholas ran a hand over his face. Look, I owe you an apology for yesterday. You were being a father, Maya replied. You were afraid? He nodded slowly. That comic. How old is it? I've had it since I was a kid. It was the only thing I brought with me when I left foster care for the last time. It reminded me there were good people in the world. Or at least stories about them. Nicholas looked at Maya more closely now. You grew up in the system. Maya's voice was even. Most of my life, bounced around, but I had a few good people who showed up when it counted. He sat in the chair beside Emily's bed and watched his daughter silently for a moment. Then he said, she hasn't said a word in over 3 weeks. And now she's smiling. That's more than most therapy sessions would get in months. Nicholas gave a short laugh, dry, tired. You know, people keep telling me to let the experts handle it, but the truth is I don't know what that even means anymore. Sometimes, Maya said softly, the best medicine isn't in a vial. It's in a moment. Nicholas looked at her with a new kind of attention, not evaluation, not challenge, recognition. A few minutes later, after Maya did her rounds, she returned to find something new on Emily's tray, a notepad, and beside it, a pen Nicholas had left behind. On the pad was a list. 1. Comic book. 2. Nurse Maya. 3. Daddy. Maybe she'll talk someday. Maya stared at the list. The words weren't perfect, but they were Emily's. She folded the page gently as if it might crumble if touched too hard. She kept it in her breast pocket for the rest of the shift. That afternoon, however, things changed. Maya was called into the nurse supervisor's office again. Mrs. Delaney sat behind the desk like a stone gargoyle, fingers steepled, face impassive. I've received concerns, she said bluntly. From Mr. Crane's legal representative. Maya's stomach tensed. Concerns about what? Overstepping, emotional entanglement, violation of neutrality policies. Maya blinked. Are you serious? I've done nothing but care for a little girl who, this isn't about what you think is right. It's about policy, appearances, liability. Maya gritted her teeth. Did Mr. Crane file a complaint? Mrs. Delaney shifted in her chair. His office did. That's all I can tell you. Maya was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Fine. She left the office with a hollow ache in her chest. The corridor felt colder than usual, the lights harsher. When she returned to room 4C, the blinds were drawn and Emily was asleep. But something was missing. The comic. It wasn't on the bed, not on the tray, not under the pillow. She checked the drawer. Nothing. Then she saw it. The comic tucked into the trash can. Torn. Maya stared at the jagged rip down the center of the page. Captain Liberty's face had been split in two, and next to it was a note hastily scribbled on hospital letterhead, "We appreciate your compassion, but please respect boundaries. Crane Legal Affairs." Maya stood still, breath caught in her throat. Behind her, a soft shuffle. Emily. It's bark, stay. Speak. Believe. The tree had become a symbol. Every petal that fell. Every child who laughed under its branches. Every parent who learned to listen. Emily reached up to touch one of the painted leaves. She whispered, "We did it." Nicholas wrapped an arm around them both. "Yes, we did." Maya knelt and kissed Emily's cheek. She looked up at the oak's spreading canopy. Together, Emily grinned. Together, they walked hand in hand back toward the center, the future wide before them, filled with voices, stories, hearts ready to heal. Because when someone stays, someone speaks. When someone listens, someone finds hope. And when we do it together, we build a world where every child matters.